Hi, everyone. I hope that you can see me, can see my screen. So for the sake of the time, we will be starting. Just before I start, I want to make sure that the screen is visible. You can hear me clearly
Very
as
good.
we move forward.
Yes, we see you very well. Thank you.
All right, all right. So thank you all for joining, and I wish you like a successful exam attendance for the Thursday exam for transfer pricing. For those of you who have did today international taxation, I'm not sure if the time is up or not yet, but anyway, if any of you have participated in international taxation today, I wish you the very best of luck to pass the exam. So as we proceed further, we have a specific agenda, and I want you to help me with the agenda as well. Our agenda is very specific, as we have highlighted. We will have to go through some technical discussion about the exam preparation last minute, building some confidence, tips and tricks, Q&A. So Q&A, if you have any questions, please just defer it till the end. We will have a Q&A session where I will be able to tackle some of your questions and answer it. And because today will be very much an interactive workshop. This is not a lecture, it's an interactive workshop where I will share some tips and tricks from those who have cleared past papers. And for that sake, I encourage you all to scan the code here on the screen because I'll need you to participate a bit with me. So if you can use your phone to scan the code, if you are using your phone for the session, you can go to slide.com and then hit this meeting number 3677710. It will be very much easy because we need to know some of the information that will be very much valuable to each one of us. And then we will have a quiz and maybe your Q&A. You can post it there very easily, and it will be very user-friendly. All right, so again, this is the joining link. This is the joining QR code. Make sure that you are joined so that you can participate with us. I'll just wait one more minute so that everyone can just scan the code or use the slido.com and go to the meeting link, meeting number 3677710. That's it. As we don't have a moderator for today, so we are encouraged to help each other. At any point of time, if you feel that you're unmuted, please mute yourself. You will have a chance by the last part of the today's workshop to ask any questions. So because I need some help from you as well. So I'll just start for the sake of the time. I'm gonna be the main speaker for today's workshop with you, and we will have Mahmoud Abu Samra with us as well, but he might face some issues that are about the timing. So I'll be the main speaker today. So my name is Abdurrahman Ali. For those who don't know me, I'm an ADIT affiliate. I already teach ADIT for the last 2 years. I'm a recognized ADIT instructor from UKCIOT, and I'm working as a tax director in the consulting industry. So as we move forward, are you ready for the exam? That's the main question that I want to ask you, right? You should be ready by now. Since you're here, this means that you're ready, which means you're just trying to recap and do the last minute review. So before we hit the technical part, I just need to understand where are you from and some of the soft questions that can break the ice. You will have to type where are you from, either now or originally, does not matter. I'm currently located in, I'm not originally from Egypt, and my native language is Arabic, but I'm currently permanently located in Dubai. So I'm just interested to know from where you are All right, so I can see 3 tags for Egypt, 2 tags for Zimbabwe, 1 tag I can consider myself as well, 2 tags for Dubai since I'm there. All right, okay, 3 heads for Dubai, 2 heads for India. Egypt is like taking a big bite of the countries. All right, that's good. That's good. Thank you for participating. So you're not alone, right? You're not alone for attending the exam. So if this is your first exam, please choose the best option that is better for you. So it might be your first one. It might you have already cleared one before. Maybe you have cleared 2 papers before. Maybe you're just trying to navigate through. So that would be others. All right, I can see that 8 has participated. Yes, this is your first exam. 67%, 22% who have cleared paper 1. Good luck. I hope that you have cleared the paper already. And 1 said, no, I already attended 2 papers, so this is the 3rd paper. All the best to finalize it and clear it and become an ADIT affiliate. And welcome you on board very soon, inshallah. So right, 70, 20, 10. This is the final record. I hope so, since 10 has participated. All right, this seems quite a bit interesting because transfer pricing has a lot of correlation with other papers as well in specific principles of international tax. So 70% of the attendants trying to attend the first exam here. That sounds interesting. All right, the next question is your native language is, for me, I'll start from myself. All right, I speak Arabic as my native language. But because the exam, the syllabus, everything is in English, so you have to study the materials in English, you have to teach the materials in English, and even the explanations, the writings. You know that ADIT is not an MCQ exam, it's an essay writing. So you have to understand and write English very well in terms of the terminologies and connecting the dots. All right, 4 heads for Arabic, 3 heads for English, and we have someone who can speak 4 different languages. Right, that's fantastic. Okay, okay. 8 has participated. Thank you for participation. So I'll start with a quick quiz. All right, that's not an exam quiz. That's for again, we're trying to revamp. So in order to join the quiz, I think you should have. Wait a minute, because all right, this is the quiz you should be participating in. Again, from slido.com, you'll head the meeting number 3677710, and I'll need to hear what's your say about it. When was the most recent transfer pricing guidelines update? When was it updated for the latest time? I'm sure that most of you know that there have been like quite 2 updates in the last 5, 6 years, right? So when do you think is the latest update? I think that some of you definitely know this by heart. Some of you might be still trying to get their feet on. All right. So this is the first question. And yes, it's in 2022. That was the latest update. Thanks for the 86% who have contributed for the set. For the 1 or for the 14% contributed, yes, 2017 was there. But the latest update is 2022. So the next question is, which transfer pricing guidelines chapter has mentioned the transfer pricing methods and how many they are? So under the transfer pricing guidelines, it's separated into chapters, and those chapters definitely you have went through so that you can be here today and attend the exam on Thursday. So the question is, which chapter have discussed the transfer pricing methodologies that is available? It can be 4, 5, or 1, depending on the chapter. So which one you're choosing? All right. So that's like almost 100% head. That's good. Rating is good. Yeah, that's because if you have the chapter in your mind, it will facilitate your life. Trust me. Because the exam, you will not be able to memorize everything unless you're at an expert level. And if you're at an expert level, yeah, you will be able to memorize it. But if you're still trying to get yourself up to speed with the international taxation transfer pricing, it will take you some time. So yeah, chapter 2, 5 transfer pricing methods plus others. Yeah, that's the right answer. So the last question, maybe this is the last, we'll see. I think this is the second last. Yeah, maybe second last. So please check the 5 comparability factors from this list. So 3 of you have had all of the above. Maybe the rest will have the same. So is it contractual terms, business strategies, functional analysis, characteristics of property or services? For those who, I think we should have hit the button for the recording because some of our colleagues might not be able to attend. So let's hit the recording button. Okay, I hope it's recording. We need an IT expert for these events. All right, and I'm not an IT expert anyway. So, okay, thanks for those who submitted all the above. So one more question. How many chapters we have under OECD transfer pricing guidelines? OECD transfer pricing guidelines. We mentioned it was 2017 and then updated by 2022. How many chapters is underneath the hood for that? Do you know or you don't know? All right. So majority is saying it's 10 chapters. But I think if I ask it the question, how many chapters under OECD transfer pricing guideline 2017 version, your answer would be correct still, right? You're thinking about it because of the latest updates. I hope that you tackle the difference between 2017 and 2022 is having one more chapter, and definitely there are other changes happening as well. All right, 10 chapters is the right, correct answer. One last viewpoint. This is a viewpoint. This is not a question. This is not a question. This is a viewpoint. What do you think? Do you believe that transfer pricing exam is easy, medium, or difficult? What do you think? All right. Okay. So some of you mentioned it's medium, 25%. Some of you said it's difficult, but 50% said it depends. All right, there is no right or wrong answer. All of them are green already, but here depends is winning. Okay, this is good. The thing is, transfer pricing exam is a bit, it depends on the personality, it depends on the person, himself or herself. If she or he attending the exam with prior knowledge of transfer pricing or no, with prior knowledge in international taxation or no, it depends. That's why I would, if I would depend, make it depends. And if you have expertise, the exam would fall between the criteria of being easy to medium. If you have good understanding of transfer pricing and international taxation. All right. So this is not a question. This is a must. I'm sure that most of you will be attending the exam just after 2 days. So are you ready? Or maybe you're just here to see what's going on. So let's see the poll. So the poll is saying that, okay, 50% is ready, 25 is no. Okay, I hope I will try to help you today with some tricks. All right, let's go one more step before we hit this results button. So yes, 50% ready, 25 no. I can feel you. I can feel the nervousness. I can remember how tough it was, the exam time. studying and trying to keep up to date with the work. Everyone is working full time. Maybe you have a season or something, depending on the location, depending on the professionalism that you have, the specialty. So, and 25% are welcome. They are still trying to explore what's going on in the market. Well, I think you might be need to go from the early beginning, but you're most welcome to see what's happening here. We'll discuss some tips and tricks today. So the thing is, there is no best or prizes for the best attendance or for the best scorers. So Sandeep, thank you so much. I think we're already real life friends. So I'll see you very soon, inshallah. So let's discuss some of the aspects about the exam strategy now. Since we have a bit of a diversion or different groups who are here to hear about transfer pricing exam, who are attempting this as a second paper, who have attempted two papers before, and this is the last paper. So exam strategy for everyone, this will apply. The first exam strategy point, please make sure to focus on your time management. Your time management is very essential to navigate through the complexities of the exam. You only have 3.15 hours for the exam. This exam will consume your time to the max. This is how the examiners are doing the exam for students to test your capabilities of different aspects, not only the technical part, but also the time management and the styles. So meanwhile, if you feel like you're unmuted by any chance, please mute yourself. We need your help here. So focus on your time management. You have part A, B, C for the transfer pricing exam. You should allocate your time based on the marks of each part you are required to fulfill. So you have part one, 50% of your exams, 50 marks. Part B, that's 20% of your exam, 20 marks. Part C, that's 30%, 30 marks. So you should allocate your time in 50, 20, 30 style. This is how you should allocate your time management. You can have an alarm to start on and allocate the time, the proper time for each exam question. Once this alarm is done, you should move on to the next question. In fact, you should not only allocate the time as per the 3 hours and 15 minutes. You should reduce the time. For example, the part A of the question, or part A of the exam is 2 questions. That's 50 marks. If you're allocating 50% of your total hours, 3.15, in fact, you might allocate almost 1 hour and a half for the first part. You should allocate less than that. Your target should be less than that. You should allocate a range between 30 minutes to 35 minutes for each question of part A. The reason is the buffer of time you will save from question one, question two, and the whole 5 questions you have to attempt during the exam will save you almost 15 minutes to review in the end. If you do not follow the time management technique, you might lose your focus, you will lose your exam. So pay attention to this one. The second exam strategy is focus on your exam question. Reread your question, reiterate the idea, rethink about it, read it twice. You're not alone doing this. You're not the one that read the question for the first time and you think you might be stupid if you read it one more time. Please read it one more time. We all did that. That's totally fine. If you read it from the first time, that's great, all right. But if you read it again, that's also great. All you need to do is read the exam, so you still focus on the time and you still focus on what exactly are you trying to answer. The reviewer don't know your name, don't know yourself, they don't know your professionalism, your specialty, how struggle you had before to attend this exam, they don't know you. They only know that you will answer a question they are asking. So please answer the relevant question you're being asked. Focus on your style. That's the third strategy. All right, so style does matter. I know that some of you might be in a hurry. We are not in English native speakers and so on. But if you don't have style, again, the reader or the examiner don't know you. Without the style, without the technicality that you will provide to them, they will not be able to comprehend your answer. So in order for them to comprehend your answers and give you the marks that you deserve, it will be based on your technicality, it will be based on your style, and definitely style does matter because you will have to maintain a lot of order. For example, you will maintain order, you will maintain punctuations, and you have the option to do the spell checking by the end. So the next exam strategy is keep away from distractions. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of students who have talked to me like, okay, my mobile was there, it was ringing all the time, I had to do that, I had to do that. Why are you doing that? Please keep yourself away from distractions. You should practice your exam before the exam day in a place where either at your office, at your home, exam center does not matter. The thing is, you should keep away from distractions. You should practice being in an examination room with yourself so that you can maintain your focus. 100% concentration is required for the 3.15 hours. You have worked a lot for this exam window, so please do not just let it go. Stay calm, pause, and reflect. The most important factor in these types of exams, if this is your first qualification, you'll have to stay calm. You have to remain calm. And you have to keep focusing on the aspects that you will be focusing on mainly. For example, if you are trying to challenge yourself during an exam question, your mind might be not ready for the next question. So you can take a pause, maintain your calmness, and move forward. And by the way, you might be hearing in the background my 2 years old boy. He might be playing around, crying sometime. It does happen. And I understand everyone who have family at home and attending the exam even. It might be challenging as well. So pause between questions. Do not try to just once you finish one question to go to the next one. Just pause for 30 seconds or 1 minute maximum. Have a cup of coffee, have some water. It will help you to release the tension and go to the next idea or the concept of the exam. Try to reflect. Reflection will happen during the buffer time I just try to elaborate on during exam strategy 1. So reflect on what you have done. Utilize the excess of time as a buffer to go through the whole paper one more time if needed. If you have time, go through the paper one more time. Try to reflect. Am I right here? Do I need some more interpretation, further clarification? Was the time up where I had more thoughts and now I need to add more time to that question? Yes. If you have one idea that you did not attempt and the time is up for the question during the 35 or 30 minutes, you can leave a comment in your exam paper. By the way, you have two options to take a comment, either to have your blank paper as a physical paper outside your software exam 4, or even on your exam paper, you can take notes, you can take comments. Whatever the style you feel free to do it, but make sure that this comment you should erase or should not be there while you submit your final exam paper. So reflect is important because at that time you will feel, okay, I did reflect on my papers. So these are the 5 exam strategies I would recommend you to focus on. So since we are at last minute exam review, I do encourage you not to review everything. You have to review only specific subjects, maybe do some readings, and you have to be mindful, ready for the exam, and of course, do a lot of sleeping. I would encourage you. So core fundamental subjects. See, those are not the only subjects that transfer pricing would be examining you, but those are some of the subjects that I would recommend you to just go do it if possible, because it's not very in detail like the transfer pricing guideline chapters. But maybe chapter one you have to do. It has a lot of information that is usually being asked and examined by the examiner teams. Transfer pricing methods, which is chapter two, as you already answered. It's very important that you understand it. And we'll see the exam paper, the past paper in a minute, and it's examining those 2 points in so far. Recent updates. If there is any update that is relevant to transfer pricing, you have to be aware of. And you might utilize your time doing some research. This is how it works. Pepsi project, whatever relevant as Pepsi project to transfer pricing, you should be aware of. You should do the review Pepsi Action 4, Pepsi Action 8, 9, 10, Pepsi Action 13. Those are relevant to transfer pricing. Intra-group transactions, those are very important aspects because the exam case studies will ask you to interpret intergroup transactions. So you have to understand intergroup transactions very much widely. And probably you should understand the transactions, services, goods, financing, and you should be able to interpret the idea itself. So those are some of the core fundamental subjects. I'd like you to go through it and be a reader. Don't be now a student anymore. Khalas, time is up almost for the exam. What you need to do now is relax, be a reader, and be ready for the 3.15 hours of your exam. What we'll do next is we will go through transfer pricing exam, which is December 22. I'll not be interpreting the exam into very much deep dive details. I expect that you're trying to recap the strategy, the key bulletins, and I'll give you some tips and tricks while you're attempting your exam as well. So, as you already know, part A of the exam is the 50 marks. So now we will put on the screen the exam paper. So you already know this exam paper because either you have already answered these exams or attempted these past papers before, or already you have experienced it somewhere. If you're not familiar with it, you should be familiar with it because your exam is Thursday. Maybe those who are trying to understand what's transfer pricing about, they will need to do their due diligence in that matter. So part A here is your 50 marks. The one thing I do, once you fetch the exam question, do not start reading. Do not start reading. One more time, I'm saying it. Just go check what's going on with the 50 marks, part A, important part of your exam. If you did this part good, you will be in a better position to pass the exam. So I'll just hit scroll down till the questions here. So the questions here, they are giving me a case study, and I can see that they are asking me questions about the same case. Now I have understood that the same case will have the 50 marks. So I'll need to pay attention to the case and to details because it will be 50 marks of my exam. And we have these questions, 1.1, 1.2, and then 2.1, 2.2. You will have to answer each question separately. One answer to question number one separately from answering question number two. Despite the fact, same case. Yes, you have to be very clear on your paper. And you have to pay attention to one thing. This is 1.1, 1.2. It's 10 marks, 15 marks, and then 15 marks, and then I don't need to ask AI assistant, thank you. So 15 marks and then 10 marks for 1.1, 2.2. So it makes sense that you should allocate more time to 50 marks than the 10 marks. And likewise here, 50 marks, 10 marks. you should allocate more time, but it does not make any sense that you will reduce the 10 marks time down to the bottom. No. So assuming that you have 25 minutes to attempt, I'm just assuming 25 minutes is your allowed time to answer question number 1. I'll encourage you to make it 15 minutes to answer 1.2, 10 minutes to answer 1.1. But keep in mind something. In transfer pricing exam, some of your statements you might reuse it as reproducible content, reproducible statements that you wrote by your own bare hand. So make sure that sometimes the questions in the exam might ask you a relevant information. So you might come back, take a copy of certain paragraph and then paste it without investing your time or wasting your time typing it one more time. So 1.1, 1.2, this is how it works. 1.1, 2.2, that's how it works. So what's the question? The question is asking you to accurately delineate the transactions between the associated enterprises within S group. All right. And now I can formalize an opinion. I can formalize a view of what will be my answers for this question. What's the second question? Quickly, it's perform a functional analysis of S group and characterize each entity. All right. This seems to be that I have to interpret the whole group transactions, and then I need to perform a functional analysis and characterize the entity based on the findings. At this moment, I'll start to do the reading for the question number 1. And of course, I already understood that they will ask me questions about the same case for question number 2. So by reading, I'll save some time for question number 2. Now what you need to do is just go up again, and now you have to start reading. This is how it should look like in the exam. Here, I'll not be reading every single word, but as you can see on the screen, this S group has its parent co, and the parent co will have some legal obligations, some ownership, and they might do some R&D researches, and they might be distribution of some products that they are manufacturing, and so on and so forth, having some sort of meetings. And then we have sub 1, which has some obligations or some duties as a sub company, maybe in a foreign jurisdiction, and they are giving you the corporate tax rates for each sub. So look at it from a perspective of sub 1, sub 2 different rates, which means different countries, sub 3 different country, 5%, so 5%, 20, and the one above was 15. Then we have one here, which is 10. So now we are formalizing an opinion about a multinational group, which have 4 subs in four different countries and the parent co. So this is how it looks like. What you will need to do is you need to analyze every piece of information that are giving you here, because it will not only help you on the question number 1 to accurately delineate the transactions, but also it will help you in the second question, 1.2 and 2.1, 2.2. So make sure that you save your time by doing so. With this exam question, it's a straightforward exam question for those who did transfer pricing in the past or have done good study. It's straightforward, but it's very lengthy, very complex in analyzing the case. You have to analyze the case up to your best. You have to understand these circumstances. You can do one thing here. Either you start writing the relationship, or maybe with your draft paper, the blank paper, the physical paper outside the exam form software, you can start to draft the relationship between the companies and who's working with who. For example, here, this parent co sells finished goods and replacement parts to S sub 1 and sub 2. So now you're trying to analyze the relationship between parent co as a parent company and the relationship with sub 1 and sub 2. It does make sense that it might not be dealing with sub 3 or sub 4. This is how you should interpret the case. And usually pay attention to the risk areas of the IB. IB is very important, and loans is very important because this is intercompany transactions as well. That is not tangible. This is not goods. This is either financing, IB, and maybe cash pooling as well. Likewise, this is not tangible as well. So might be intra-group low value added services out there. So pay attention to these. Try to categorize each single paragraph in its sequence and in its order. This is how you should interpret the case. Take 3 to 5 minutes to read the case. Build a view. Take your time on the reading. This question or this case is 50 marks. So digest it well and then start to answer each single question separately. Answer to question number 1.1, and start to do the delineation of transactions. It's very important to do it. And then you will have to start to do your functional analysis by listing the assets, risks, functions of each entity. By listing and by analyzing the functional analysis, you will be able to characterize each entity. For example, what I can see on sub 4, it has low value added activities. It might be just acting as a low value inter-group service provider. So it might be a support office, it might be back office support, and so on. So the characteristics or the characterization of that entity will not be high risk or higher in degree of the risk, either on the risk diagram, we can say. So going to the next question, which is the second question of your 50 marks. Again, pay attention to the marks in each sub-question. 2.1 is asking you to explain how would you select and apply the most appropriate TP method. You do not need to memorize everything about transfer pricing methods. It's already there. You will have your book that might be Keys Van Ride book. You might have the OECD transfer pricing guidelines book with you in the exam. So you will not memorize anything. You will have to just understand where you can search, where you can get the relevant information. Definitely during your study time, you have highlighted the key areas or the key strength of each method. That's why here, even the questions will ask you to highlight the strength and the weaknesses of each question or each methods, I mean. So while you're doing your study, keeping the end in mind that they will ask you to provide the information. So here, this is very important that you will do the interpretation about select and apply. This selection and application of the most appropriate transfer pricing method will rely on your answer to question number 1, which is your functional analysis, your accurate delineation of the transactions that has been conducted here for the intra-group transaction for this M&E group, S group. So this is how you should ask the first questions. And now 2.2 is asking you to identify the transfer pricing issues that you would raise to the group tax manager, because here you are a transfer pricing advisor to S group. But there is an in-house group tax manager that you should highlight the key areas that you might have analyzed. In between the lines of the interpretation of the case, you will see the issues. For example, it might be different percentage of the markup on the cost, or different percentage of a free loan, for example, for affiliates, or cash pooling without any margins, and so on. Those are the conditions that might be high-risk areas that you need to highlight to the group company or the group tax manager to highlight the risks. So this is how, let's go there one more time. Okay, so this is how 2.2 is asking you to highlight as an advisor to the group tax manager the risk management perspective, so that they can take their own precautions and try to be in a safer zone. This is how you interpret 50 marks of your question. This is 50% of your exam. The second tip I would tell you about, for myself, I have not made this exam in order. I attempted part A, no part 1, and then part C, and then I came back to part B. And I will tell you why. Maybe some of you might not prefer the same mechanism, but if you prefer it, that's up to you. Part B is again a case study that you will have to interpret. In fact, and it's 20% of my exam. Part C, it's 2 questions I have part C, I have to take 2 questions out of those 5 questions, if I'm not mistaken. So I have to attempt 2, and I will get 30 marks. And to be honest, the topics will be different from part B. It will be a bit asking you different topics and subjects. So my mind will not be very much exhausted after part A. So I'll go to part C and then come back to part B. That's my strategy. If you prefer to do it, it's up to you. If you prefer to stick to A, B, C, again, it's up to you. Whatever works for you, you have to make it. So unlike part A, that was mandatory, part B, you have to select one. Usually, they will give you a similar case study that you have to analyze in terms of transfer pricing. And the second question in part B that you have to choose either or would be a different subject, but relevant subject. Different from the transfer pricing OECD guidelines, but it might be correlated. For example, there will be correlation between OECD Mobile Tax Convention, per establishment under Article 5, maybe BEPS Action Plan, here 7, and the correlation with the transfer pricing. So you will have to figure out this type of questions. You have to choose either or. So for the sake of the discussion today, let's just go through it to understand how it works. So again, if you choose in this question number 3 to answer, what I'll do is I'll just go to the questions. I'll not read it now. I'll start from the questions. Describe the changes in characteristics. So there is a change in characteristics in the entities, relation to functions, assets, and risks. Far changes means that there has been something happened here. I have not read the case yet. In the second question, because it's a 10-10 for each of the 20 marks, 50%, 50%, the second question is asking me or you as an exam attendee to discuss any potential TP risks and issues relating to the business restructure. From the questions, I could formalize a view. I formulated a view about that there is a change in characteristics for each of the entities, means that the functions, assets, risks have been changed for this group. And there have been some business restructuring that affected if there is any transfer pricing risk or issues. So now I can read with the end in mind, read with the answer I'm trying to draft. Now you can start reading to see what happened to Charlie Cole or Charlie Corp and try to see what happened. Take comments as much as you can from your readings. Your first 1 minute or 2 minutes is for reading purposes. Do the reading, understand the case, and then come back and reiterate the questions to be sure that you will answer the needed question. Do not answer any other questions than the one that is being asked. Otherwise, you're losing your time and you're not there for the time management will be lost. You might lose the focus and maybe you're losing marks and you're losing time. This means that you're not in a good shape. So this is how it works. You should interpret the case on a case-by-case basis to see. Very important to keep an eye for the intangibles being transferred from one place to another place. If there's any changes, make sure to check if there is a core activity being transferred from one country to another. Make sure to look for the tax rates that they will give you. These are very important questions, very important givens that you will utilize to answer the question. So this is how the 20 marks, the first 20 marks works in part B. Let's look at the second question. The second question in part B that you have to choose either is asking you about the multinational company which is headquartered in this country. Again, I will just go to read the question. The question is asking you about maybe there is a permanent establishment happening in this giga lot. Maybe this is a country, this is a jurisdiction where there is a deemed PE about to arise and you have to interpret about the case. And again, the second question is asking you, what about the methodologies which profits would be allocated to? Pay attention to the marks. 50 marks, 5 marks. You must not allocate the same time to the 5 marks question similar to the 15. Please allocate more time. If you're about to allocate let's say 20 minutes, you must allocate 15 minutes here, writing about this, interpreting here, and then the 5 marks or the 5 minutes allocated here. This is asking about the attribution of profits to permanent establishment. There have been reports in 2008, 2010, 2018 about transfer pricing and attribution of profits to permanent establishments. And there's a team basis here of PE that you have to interpret the case above here to understand how you will do it. But keep in mind, you do not need to memorize everything. If you're not doing it for your work on daily basis or weekly basis or routinely, you'll not be able to memorize it. So once you see that this question is relevant, let's say for Article 5 of the OECD Model Tax Convention, you can just open up the page of the article and keep it open with you. It will help you to memorize, it will help you to accelerate and scan with your eye and mind that subject so that you will be able to digest the topic. The reason I mentioned that it was interesting that we had more than 50% or maybe like 30%, I cannot remember now, of people who are attending, students who are attending transfer pricing as a first paper is that you guys should have an initial understanding of international taxation subjects. And if you do not have international taxation subjects as a background, you should have, maybe you should avoid this question because it might be about you should take question number 3 instead of 4. So again, you might have the chance in the exam if the exam is allowing you and you don't have the background in international taxation. But if you have good background, it will be very much reinforcement to you. So the question here is asking about permanent establishment. I would assume it's not a straightforward question. You have to interpret and interlock the ideas from Article 5, Taxation 7, the changes that happened in 2017 model, and transfer pricing related subjects in terms of the relationship here. Maybe if there is a business restructure, you might incorporate as well. So this is like the part B of the exam, how it looks like. As we go forward, part C, that's the one I said in order I would take as a second after part A directly. In fact, to be honest, you should take a break, as I mentioned earlier. You should take a break between the parts. You should take a break between the exam questions. Take a pause without reading, without writing, and it will help you to just recover. You might recover your hand if you're typing so fast or typing a lot. You might recover your mind to just stay fresh and stay focused. So part C will ask you to choose 2 of the 5 questions they are throwing you. Pay attention to the subject of the questions and pay attention to the marks. If I have a question that is, maybe I'll go through it. The moment I see part C, I do not answer from the first moment. I have to read the 5 questions and then I'll choose 2. This is how it works. So either you have to start from here. So question number 5, it's asking you about transfer pricing safe harbor. It's asking you about contemporaneous transfer pricing documentation, importance of ALP. Question number 6 is asking you about some sort of CBC reporting, CBCR, and asking you about the avoidance of double taxation and preventing of disputes. So if I feel okay with these 2 subjects, do not read more if you feel very much strong with those subjects. Maybe you feel free to just, for the curiosity purpose, I might read the rest. All right, so question number 7 is about Pillar 1, PEPS Action 1, and it's about digital economy, asking you to interpret in terms of transfer pricing under Pillar 1 and the relevancy of PE and transfer pricing. So if you don't have solid understanding of this subject, do not take the question and save your time. Question 8 is asking you about advanced pricing arrangements, APAs, and cost contribution arrangements, CCAs. So if you feel very much solid, you can take this question, attempt it. Last question is asking you about what would you consider to be the riskiest intragroup financing arrangement. It's asking you to analyze a certain view about the financing arrangements. So you may cite any relevant case law In fact, I've not mentioned this, but I'm mentioning it now. Relevant case law is very important. You will get marks if you are referring relevant case law at any of your questions, part A, B, C, whenever you have time. This will be adding to your marks and you will collect more marks. And trust me, 1 mark does make a difference. Some of you may know some students who failed for 1 mark, exactly 1 mark. I know a lot of people who failed for 1 mark. So pay attention to the time, pay attention to the subject and the question. So now what you will do is, I read 5 questions, I need to determine only 2. Choose your preferred 2 and start to take them. For me, if I'm attending this exam, I would say 5, 6 questions are okay. 8, 9 questions are okay. Maybe I have preference to 8, and this subject is very, very stretched, and it has a lot of information, so I might be a bit, I don't have a recent update, maybe I would say reference point in your exam. So you don't have reference point to the latest Pillar 1 as an accepted or allowed permitted text, but you have information about ABA, CBA, CCAs in your permitted text. You have information about ALP and the importance. You have information about TP safe harbors in your document, in your allowed text in the exam. So make sure that you are utilizing what you have, because again, I do not memorize everything. I know I studied, and then it's a time to get some readings, really quick reading of certain subjects, and then come back and make your interpretation of the case. Do not try to attempt to copy and paste answers from your book or your reference material. This will not count towards your marks. You're losing time for the sake of just copying and pasting. And keep in mind that if you are having any of the non-allowed or non-permitted text and you're copying and pasting from that material, the system might detect that you're referring to subjects or referring to statements as copy and paste from outside resource, and this means that the system will detect and you will receive an email after that with that being happened. And I've seen cases who happened likewise that. So try not to do that, please. There are allowed only materials that you are asked to use and utilize during your exam. So here the part C is very straightforward, I would say, for those of you who have done transfer pricing study. So transfer pricing safe harbor, it's safe harbor rules that you're utilizing to minimize and reduce the administrative burdens for the taxpayers. Definitely there is a thresholds that the countries are encouraged to implement to make sure that the regime is, I would say, equal footage between multinational groups and let's say medium to small size businesses. And again, the second question would be the importance of contemporaneous documentation of the transfer pricing. You will have to interpret the case. Why do you have this type of contemporaneous documentation and the importance? And is it its importance of being occurring or incurring or being prepared at the same time of the real transaction? As you can see, 3 questions, each question towards 5 marks. Again, you might be preferring this type of 3 questions. You might be preferring of 2 questions, 8 and 7 marks. Each of the questions is 15 end of day. You must answer 2 to get the 30 marks. So the third question, which is at the heart of the transfer pricing, if you don't know how to answer this question, you should not attempt the transfer pricing exam. This is at the heart of the transfer pricing as fundamental concept. 6th question is about avoiding double taxation and preventing disputes. So here they gave you a case, a small case, to interpret what's going on. As you can see, there might be a case where a new entity in a country which maintain policy of not entering into tax treaties. So this country might not want to enter into tax treaties. And the reason that might backfire on this country or this jurisdiction, it might let the taxpayers suffer from double taxation. And it might not help the taxpayers to resolve any disputes if not entering into tax treaty. So here it's the question is, it's a reverse engineering, think about it. It's trying to ask you the question, what is the benefit of having a double tax agreement? That's in essence the question. The second question of 6.2 is asking about the CBCR. Of course, PEP section 13 must be listed there. And you have to list the CBCR reporting. If you're aware of the latest updates, you should list it as well. Peer review updates if you have any. And you definitely have to interpret the case of the PEP's action 13. Again, do not try to go more than the time allocated to this question, because it will not be helpful to your exam and to your marks. This question about Pillar 1 under BEP Section 1, it's actually interpreting the case of transfer pricing in terms of Pillar 1, Amount A and Amount B, and the in-house or in-country distribution and services of the transfer pricing rules and regulations. It's a very complex, very wide topic, I would say, on this subject or this question. I will going to start directly from what I have just mentioned, but I have to give a bit background of Pillar 1 and how it's impacting transfer pricing and multinational groups. And you have to mention the threshold that will be applicable in order to get the Pillar 1 in scope entities, because not every entity, not every multinational company, of course, most of the multinational companies will be having more than 75 million euros as a revenue threshold. But again, maybe some of the groups might be having less. So not everyone will be in scope. So you have to start from the background of explaining the case and so on. And then it will ask you about the relevancy of PE and transfer pricing. And you might shed the light on the recent publications about how PE definition is being changed as part of the BEPS project, Action 7. And you have to think about the methodology, the methods and the examples that was given in 2018 report about transfer pricing and so on. So again, give the marks 10 more time than the 15. So this question is for international tax specialists. I do not recommend that transfer pricing professionals should attempt it in the time being. So because you will get more marks if you're speaking about other subjects because you have references, as I mentioned. 8 and 9. 8 is talking about or asking about the ABAs. Of course, you know the ABAs by now and the CCAs as well. Either the taxpayer has to make an advanced pricing arrangement with the taxing authorities. In order to simplify the case, you have to mention the pros and cons of having an ABA. You have to mention the complex and the lengthy process of having an ABA if the country is allowing you, and whether or not the country might be allowing ABAs is very important for the business, for the community. And definitely, if your system is developed in a way that will allow taxpayer to have and leverage ABAs, this will definitely reduce the burden of the transfer pricing audits later on. This means that you might, on a country perspective and on a company perspective, both of the sides might be a winning sides. Definitely, there's an exchange of information about EBAs, and you have to discuss all of these information. CCAs, you have to mention the types of the CCAs and how it works between multinational company. And the post CCA, once you have the development, for example, how things would work on an IB perspective and the ownership on economical and legal ownership perspective, and how this can be utilized in base erosion profit shifting strategies. Those are the type of answers you should shed the light. Make sure to reference the chapter, reference the subchapter in your answer. For example, in this question, you might refer to the chapter of the ABA. For example, it was chapter 6, maybe chapter 7. Again, I do not memorize every part of the OECD transfer pricing guideline because I have it opened during the exam. You just have to go through it and identify the reference chapter and refer it. At this time, you're giving the examiner the view that you're an advisor. You're not just trying to, you don't have the information and you're just trying to write them down somewhere. No, you're trying to give an advice as an advisor, and the examiner will review your answer as if they are reading the report. Make it that way, please. So the last question on this exam is asking about the riskiest intra-group financing arrangements and whether or not you should highlight what are the perspectives. So what would you consider to be the riskiest intra-group financing arrangements? On this financing arrangements, you know that chapter 10 was added to cover financial transactions. So referring to Chapter 10, you should refer most of the riskiest intergroup financing arrangements. This does not mean that you are only shed the light on the highest risk intragroup financing arrangement, but you have to shed the light on the financing arrangements that is available, because this question is a lump sum of that you might need to cite a case law. If you don't have a case law that you are aware of, please do not try to answer this question. Pick one else other than this ninth question, because if you don't have a cite a relevant case law and you're asked to do it, this means that your marks will be counted from citing a relevant case law. So pay attention to the details to be in the safe side. I think by now we have covered like a quick recap of what happened. And in this slides, we're only the discussion we have made, it's only written on the PDF pages, and you will be able to go through it during the recording, which I've discussed in details with you, as you can see. Part A, Part B, and then I'm trying to interpret some of the cases and the questions as well. You might use the same methodology during your exam. You might do something different, does not matter, but you have to allocate time, you have to identify the subjects, and you have to be ready for that. So by now, I'll give you like one last review, and then we'll go to the Q&A. So examiner view is very identical that they are looking into you as advisors. So try to get that analyst view as a writer. Make a good analytical and writing skill. It's very important that you write in a way that will be clear. Yes, most of you might not be an English speaker natively, but it does not matter as long as you can clearly explain the narrative and interpret the case in a way that is easy to read in easy English. They will not score you on an English skill. They will score you for your technicality and the way that you present the case. Maintain order is very important. Please try to maintain order in your writings. Do not try to jump in between the lines from one subject to another, especially if you are, for example, if you are trying to shed the light on the changes that happened on OECD transfer pricing guidelines 2017. So 17 was, in matter of fact, was a consequence act or a consequence event happened after BEPS project interactions. So we saw that some of the changes happened. We saw that OECD Model Tax Convention, again, is a consequence of BEPS project, which happened in 2015 as a summary or as a summary of the recommended procedures and the steps that you have to take it on each action plan of the 15 actions. So the thing is, try to maintain order. So we had 2014 update of the OECD Model Tax Convention, and then because we have BIPS project during 2015, maybe some of the reports during 2016, we have 2017 OECD Model Tax Convention updated because of this sequence. So now you are giving the reader, you're giving the examiner, which is the reader at this moment, the viewpoint that you're maintaining order. By the way, sometimes you might be just trying to put your mind, you're trying to throw all the ideas in your mind on the piece of paper that you have on the exam4 software. You can come back later on during your 50 minutes review, try to maintain the order. You might do some copy and pasting, you might change the order of some statements. You feel like you need to add something. So the last buffer time is very important to maintain all of this style and technique for the exam. So be present, focus, please, read carefully the exam questions, and you must write with the end in mind. You need to answer the question. In order to answer the question, you have to start from an introduction level, and then you will be doing the interpretation, and then you will be doing the closure or the conclusion by the end of the question you're being asked. When you read the question one more time, I'm just trying to be that so much strict about reading the question to answer the relevant information, and then you can get your marks. I think by then we are almost done with the material for today. The thing is, we will have to discuss if you guys have any questions have been asked on Slido. Again, you can ask the questions if you went to Slido and scan this QR code, or maybe you can post it to the chat box. I know that transfer pricing is a bit a wide subject, but if you had any questions, I'm checking right now the chat box if there is any questions have been asked. Or maybe the Slido. Since Slido is not prompting any questions here, and I cannot see any questions to the chat box, I feel like everyone don't have any question, which is all right. That seems interesting to hear. This means that most of you are ready for the exam, and no more questions. Sounds great. I wish you all the best since we don't have any questions. This marks the last of today's workshop. If you have any question that maybe you forgot to type in the chat box and you want to unmute yourself and ask it, feel free to do it now. I can be here for 5 more minutes. If you have any question that you forgot to ask, that's completely fine. You can unmute yourself and ask it, and instead of writing, typing, and everyone are welcome to hear about it. If none of you have any questions, yes, please. Okay, so I can see a question here from
Yeah,
Sandeep. Please go ahead first.
Vishal this side. Uh,
Yeah,
so I
hi.
have a question regarding like how should we answer question related to TP methods? Because I have gone through past papers. So in some of the papers that the question related to TP method was carrying 15 marks, and in one of the year it was asked for 5 marks. So how much content should we mention? Like, do we need to mention strength and weakness of the method also if it has been asked for 5 marks? And do we need to explain all the 5 methods, or should we only stick to the methods which are applicable to the case?
Um, the narrative here is very important, which is transfer pricing methods. It's very important that you give everything for transfer pricing methods in a specific as a subject. But the case here, you're just getting 5 marks for that. So if you are investing more time on trying to analyze the transfer pricing methods into very much depth, this is you're losing time here. Keep in mind one thing that during the part A of your exam, you definitely have explained transfer pricing methods in very much detail. So you can utilize the earlier produced content by yourself on the exam to copy and paste some of the references that you already have utilized, but definitely you have to change the case if the case is different. So what happened in part A in this exam that we have seen together is that they asked you to make the accurate delineation, and then they asked you to select the appropriate transfer pricing methods, and then they asked you again about transfer pricing in terms of an essence of the case. So what happened here is you already typed it. You don't need to restart from scratch. You might take some of the content and reuse it and give it 5 marks of your time because you're going after 95 marks in the rest of the exam. So be careful about this one. Do not go in depth, highlight overview, generic view, and move on.
Thank you.
That's my answer for this question. So the second question we have from Sandeep, right? So hello, should we prepare the FAR analysis in a table or should we list functions, assets, or risks? Entity wide, what is your suggestion? Okay, my suggestion on this question, in fact, do not attempt to make a table. In exam for software, to make a table, it's not a user friendly, I would say. This exam for needs a lot of developments, but we have to deal with it in the current condition. So try to start analyzing at entity level assets, risks, functions, or functions, assets, risks. Try to type the function, then to see the relevant asset and the relevant risk. By this activity, you are going up and down on each of the 3 FAR steps. But this is the most, I would say, user-friendly way for you. If you feel comfortable to go to the table, but I'm not recommending it. I have not used it, even though I attempted the papers already. But I prefer this methodology because I do not have that type of flexibility. If I have an Excel file on the exam, I definitely will go for a table format. But for the exam purpose, like you mentioned, go for the functions, assets, risks for entity. For example, parent co, sub 1, sub 2, sub 3. Again, you don't need to replicate it. Once you build your content, copy and paste it. If you feel it's reproducible, sometimes you feel like I'll use this again. So do it one time and then quickly just copy and paste and then come back to reiterate the idea. This will save you time. And I think copy and paste it will work as just as fine. Control C, Control V. That's how it works on the exam 4 software. That's answering Sandeep's question. Good question. I like that one because I suffer from this a lot in exam software. Exam 4, yeah. So I believe that we don't have more questions at this moment. Yeah, it's not very user friendly. Yeah, I encourage them so much to change it, but this is what it is. We don't have much to say about it, but we'll have to act accordingly. So for the sake of the time, thank you for being here, everyone. Good luck for the exam on Thursday, and I hope that if this is your last paper, I will welcome you on board to be and become an ADIT affiliate. And if this is your first paper, you have a long journey to go. I expect that you should attend December window as well and move forward. So I'll just take one more question as I can see on the chat box now. So can you please provide reference for case laws? The case law was a bit not in one, I would say, not on one location. You have to reiterate the Tully book. They have good reference for the case law. By the way, the case law is not permitted as a text to utilize during the exam. So whatever the case study will have to reiterate and consider, you will have to memorize it. Either you have experience in it or you have to study it very well. So you can utilize the Tully book. And I think on our WhatsApp group, if I'm not mistaken, someone had shared the transfer pricing, but that was the manual. I'll recheck that, but it's a bit. I might have some back-to-back meetings today, so I'll not be able to Muhammad Karam to support you today with that one. I'll try to do that tomorrow, and most probably it will be on the WhatsApp group. Manar is asking, should I write all the TP method? However, if I'm not using it in my case, or it's not the most appropriate method, in fact, you must write all the transfer pricing methods, even if you will not use it. Likewise happened in case 1 or part 1, part A of the exam that we went through in December 22. They asked you to select the most appropriate transfer pricing methods. You have to give detailed explanation about each transfer pricing method, and then you have to go back and reiterate each transfer pricing method for whether or not it will be applicable for the case that you have. So this is how it works. You should discuss it all, explain it all about the transfer pricing methods that is being there, and then reiterate about the relevant case. This is how it works. That's a good question. All right. Thank you for being here, and wish you all the best. And the recording will be available through LinkedIn post mostly, and it will be on our WhatsApp chat as well in the coming few days. Good luck, everyone, and I would like to hear about your exam results after you finish. You can just message me, and really, I wish you all the best. Thank you so much, and enjoy your day. Thank you, Sandeep.